Here are the reported hauntings. Now, here is what's interesting. So, we've got some information from the owner when he first moved in and started work. Okay. He said that there was kind of a feeling like when you went in that like your presence being there was kind of being questioned, like if it was okay for you to be there, if you were welcomed or not.
Well, hey everybody, welcome back.
Hey everyone.
It's Generation X Paranormal. I'm Logan.
And I'm Nicole.
So, you always hear about people that live in certain states where there's like a major, destination or national treasure or something like that. Kind of admittedly, I'm from Arizona primarily, and I've never been to the Grand Canyon from the Arizona side, only from the Utah side. Which basically tells you I really hadn't spent a lot of time way up north in Arizona. Probably for a lot of reasons that, my whole family's in southern, so there's really not a ton of reason to be up there. Been to Sedona once. I went with my dad, but we didn't really do much. And I think we went on a trip one time with my mom to Show Low and a few other places. But for the most part, I rarely had ever been up to the northern Arizona area. That changed.
Yes. Primarily because of me. Yeah.
Yes, primarily because of her. We've talked about it several times, but we take trips back home, visit my family, and we happened to take a trip this time. We took our Jeep and our dog with us, which, by the way, when you're driving from Missouri to Arizona with a dog, it's you see where a movie like Vacation can kind of come to reality, because it's just...
Yeah. You have to plan your whole trip around that. Yeah. It's very different.
Yeah, it really is.
Yes.
Anyway, say all that to say we took a trip out there. And we spent probably about a month of October there, mainly in Tucson. But when we left Tucson, our goal was to go up north, visit Sedona.
Yes.
And while doing that, my sister was going to go up there with our nephews, and we're going to spend some time in Sedona, which was great, by the way.
Yes.
But intermediately, we stayed at Jerome. Never been to Jerome, and if you're into any kind of paranormal, you know what Jerome is.
Yes.
It's not one thing. I mean, all the big, TV things have been there. I think Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunt, all of them have been there. So it's no stranger to paranormal shows or paranormal activity for that matter. But we got to stay there.
Yeah, we were there only for a night and part of a day.
Right.
Because we were in transition going into Sedona.
Right.
So Jerome is a old mining town, basically. So it's up, on a mountain. Very, very cool, though.
It is cool.
Very, very cool. I wish we would have been able to spend more time.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about today. Although we visit all the local hot spots, we weren't able to stay at any of the places because we had El Pucho with us.
Yep.
So, but we did get to stay in a really cool little Airbnb, which we're going to share here. And it was really cool. It was up on the side, which all the houses are on the side of the mountain. So, you take that for what it's worth. But this one had a really cool view and had a little garden area. And it was called the Mayor's Cottage and Garden. And it's owned by Jim and Joseph. And it's a mile high up on Cleopatra Hill, which is the hill, basically, that Jerome sits on. And it has views of the Mongolian Rim, including Oak Creek Canyon, Sedona, Sycamore Canyon, and then the entire Verde Valley. Yeah. We're going to put up a map here of what the Verde Valley is. I mean, it spans a very large area. Right. So Cottonwood and Clarkdale are the towns that, are basically at the bottom of the mountain from where Jerome sits. And then you got to drive another, I think it was 45 minutes or an hour to Sedona.
Right.
But you can see the red rocks.
Oh, yeah.
from Jerome. So it's very, very interesting.
Yeah, what another thing that you find interesting about it is when you say on the hillside, folks. Let me tell you, when we say hillside, it's like
Mountainside. It's a drop. Like, we could look out the windows from the Airbnb we were staying at, even the bathroom window, and it was just like drop.
yeah. If you had,
and I was like thinking about that the whole time we were sleeping, and it was very, very nice.
Oh,
like,
it's gorgeous, yeah,
and very comfortable. And it actually has a little historic thing, which we won't go into here. But we're going to put the link to the Airbnb if you would like to go stay there. The owners are very gracious.
Yes,
it was an
very much
awesome
so.
time. But yeah, it was really, really cool.
Yeah, and I think that drive up, and we're going up there for some reason, and I know they two don't look anything alike, but I started getting this like shining thing going, in my mind as we're kind of winding around. So it's very remote, and even though Cottonwood and Clarksdale, well, especially Cottonwood, is not that far.
No, it's not.
Yeah, in fact, I would imagine
that's where they have to all go to buy things, I would think.
Yeah, and if you live in Jerome, you may work probably there. I mean, if you don't get a job in Jerome, there's not a ton of probably jobs to have there. So
it's a very artistic type city.
Yeah.
But I was funny because we saw the sign for 365 days a year going up that road, and all I could think in my mind was wintertime. There is no way.
No.
If there's like snow or ice, I would be going down those roads. No way. I mean, it's sketchy even.
Yeah.
We were there in October, and I mean, of course, it was just fall, but so there was nothing on the roads. But I was like, "There's no way I'd try to even attempt this."
No, and we've got a Rubicon, and I wouldn't even do it in that.
No, but I guess if you live there, you get used to the roads, and it's like anywhere else. Like people come from the south here to Missouri, and they're like, "I'm not driving in that," and we're like, "It's not a big deal."
Not a big deal.
So it's just, I think, what you get used to.
For sure.
I was like, nope.
And another reason I had heard about Jerome is I'm a huge fan of Tool. Love that band, and Maynard James Keenan, I think, still lives there.
Well, he was living there when he decided to start the band, so I don't know for sure.
I think he does.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty cool.
And I also discovered there's a song by a woman named Kate Wolf, and she wrote a song about Jerome called Old Jerome. So you should go check that out. We'll put the link to the YouTube channel that at least I found the song on.
Yeah. Wish we could play it, but copyright thing.
Yep.
Yeah, right. But,
so let's get into our trip to Jerome.
Sounds good.
So let's get started on the history of Jerome.
Okay.
And like I said, it's a former mining town. So let's get started at the very beginning. Now, in 1870, there were a number of claims that were filed around this Cleopatra Hill, which I mentioned before, and it's technically in the Black Mountains of Arizona. Okay, which there's tons of different mountain ranges in Arizona, so it's just the Black Mountains. And they decided to do like large-scale mining, and they have copper ore there. And we took some pictures we'll put up here that kind of show it in the hillside. Now, they wouldn't start until financing was secured from Paulina and Eugene Jerome of New York City. And one of the conditions of their investment in this mining was to name the camp after Eugene Jerome.
How about that?
Yeah.
And, copper, Arizona is the copper state.
Yeah,
so
there's many copper mines.
In fact, my whole family, my dad worked at a copper smelter. My grandfather worked. I mean, my entire family is from Douglas, Arizona. On my dad's side, and actually kind of my mom's side a little bit. They moved there, but so copper's nothing new to us. But what's interesting is, well, it's a copper. There's a little bit more of a tie to it.
Yeah. Now, in 1883, Eugene Jerome and James McDonald formed the United Verde Copper Company, which I find funny because verde is Spanish for green, and what happens with copper when it
patinas and gets old, it turns
green,
i.e. a Statue of Liberty.
Yes, exactly. And with the aid of 2 new blast furnaces, they were turning out tons of copper and even sizable amounts of gold and silver every month. The price of copper slid to about 42% in 1884, and they finally closed the mine. So from like in 1883 to 1884, it was only 1 year where they were starting to make money, and then the copper slid.
Yeah, that's crazy. And what's interesting is, even at the time of this recording, copper is insanely expensive. It still is. There were, over the last few years, people have talked about people coming in and stealing pipe stuff and from construction sites.
Oh yeah, they even steal off. I know at the graveyard where my family is all buried, they were stealing the vases and stuff.
Yeah.
Of the copper.
Yeah, which by the way,
and they
yuck.
go in and steal copper out of houses, old houses and stuff.
Yeah, they do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, in 1888, Senator William A. Clark of Montana acquired the United Verde Copper Company for $60 million. Wow. And then the mining and the smelting resumed.
In 1888, $60 million.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money now.
Yeah. Now, after he acquired this, price of copper, of course, went up. So, over $1 billion of copper, gold, and silver would eventually be extracted from this mining company. And the Little Daisy mine, owned by James McDouglas, opened up, which was an extension. Mm-hmm. So they had the main one, and they had a little side one.
Oh yeah,
little side piece.
Little side piece mining. Side hustle.
Yeah. The copper increased. The price of copper increased from 1888 to 1894. And so Clark decided to build a railroad known as the United Verde and Pacific Railroad, and it still operates today.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty well known. I mean, it's kind of the lifeblood of that area.
Mm-hmm. Now, because of the railroad, Jerome grew steadily, reaching a population of 15,000 people in the mid-1920s, which still just blows me away. You go there now, you're not going to see that. No. The massive growth and questionable development resulted in 4 major fires that almost wiped out Jerome. So lots of buildings burned down, and I mean, there was a whole mess of stuff.
Well, I mean, even to this day, they're kind of all right on top of each other.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. There was also several hundred pounds of dynamite that accidentally detonated in 1926 that destroyed a sizable part of downtown Jerome.
I like how it's accidental. Does someone just go, oh, surprise?
Well, with all that mining stuff.
Well, yeah, of course.
There's powder and there's all sorts of stuff that we don't even realize that's there. Now, the stock market crash hit Jerome in 1929 with the start of the Great Depression, when the price of copper plummeted. And in 1932, the price of copper decreased to 5 cents a pound.
God.
And they decided to close the mine and the smelter. The miners left, and the town's population fell to less than 5,000 people. So 15,000 people to 5,000 people.
That's crazy. Well, at 5 cents a pound, I mean...
So 10,000 people left that town.
That's no joke.
And being there, I can't even imagine 15,000 people.
Well, how could...
where would they go?
Easily, they had to tear down buildings, because there's no way...
Yeah,
15,000 people couldn't fit in what's
Well,
there
they could in the surrounding area.
Well, yeah, true.
But we don't see that anymore. The buildings are compacted, basically. Now, in 1935, the Phelps Dodge Company bought the mine for $21 million and restarted the operations. And that remained in operation for another 18 years. And it closed in 1953. Yeah. And that's significant because...
That is the same people that own the smelter in Douglas, Arizona, the Phelps Dodge Corporation. And my father, I've got generations of family that work for him. Now, there's going to be some that are happy with that company, and there's a lot that aren't, because when they pulled chocks out of Douglas, it pretty much it left that whole town in ruin. So.
The Jerome Historical Society formed to, quote, protect, preserve, and present the unique physical and cultural history of Jerome through its buildings, architecture, research archives, museum, and other programs for the benefit of residents and current and future generations. So they formed that to protect the town, so it wouldn't basically disappear. Right. Now, by 1960, fewer than 100 people lived in Jerome.
That I bought.
Yeah. But in 1966, the town of Jerome was designated as a National Historic Landmark. And in the 60s and 70s, a younger crowd moved in. And, they like to say they were filled with a bunch of hippies and artists.
Yes.
And you still find that to this day. There's a lot of artistic shops, and it's very much like Bisbee. The town of Bisbee is a copper mine, and and it's very filled with. And I basically, when we were there, I said this is like the Bisbee of the North.
Yeah, it's northern
that's how
Bisbee.
I saw it.
100%. Yeah.
And it's really cool because they've got little artist shops and eclectic people, and it was really, really cool.
Yeah, it's definitely. You go to some places and you go, okay, yeah, I could be here. And it was a cool place.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, a man named Al Palmer, the former mayor of Jerome in the 90s, got Jerome on the tourist map. And along with his efforts and the town council, it helped Jerome become the third most visited Arizona site, even visited today, with over 1.5 million visitors each year.
Jeez.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
Obviously they cater to tourists
Right.
there.
Well, and it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Today there are about 450 residents, many of who are retired artists, business owners, and workers. The downtown area has over 15 restaurants and wine bars, with 2 vintage saloons.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. There are over 25 galleries and a number of unique shops that represent local artists.
That's cool.
That's why the town's so cool.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Plus, Maynard James Keenan lived there. I mean, come on. Sorry.
Now,
when it comes to Jerome, you're right. It's a lot like Bisbee in the sense that there's that eclectic thing, and there's always, and it's funny because you see that in a lot of mining towns, and I just find that interesting because there was anything but eclectic back then. Back then it was kind of like it's like Tombstone. When you see Tombstone, there was a cutthroat place. It was not, it was built on some kind of shady stuff. So I just always find it interesting. Now, Bisbee, I don't think necessarily was, but for sure Tombstone, and it sounds like Jerome was kind of about the same.
Yeah, I think most of those Old West mining towns had the same kind of thing. So there was a lot of deaths, obviously. There's a lot of violence. Just crazy amount. And we're going to put up some of these as we're speaking. I found some old newspaper articles of just people dying and like people getting like murdering and all this other stuff just with this, Jerome on it. I mean, and that is just a little bit crazy. Now, we're going to talk about some actual haunted locations.
Yeah.
But let's talk about why we think it's so. Obviously, for the reasons we just spoke about, but also, what's in the hillside?
It's copper.
Copper. And copper is known as like a conductor. It basically amplifies spiritual activity.
It's first of all, it's no secret it's nature's greatest conductor. I mean, look at any wiring you have in your house has copper, most likely. Unless it's fiber optic and you ran your whole house with fiber optic, which means you're too rich to watch us anyway. But, you look at those things and a lot of even typical ghost hunting gear, which I hate that word, ghost, we'll just say paranormal investigating gear has a ton of copper.
My dowsing rods.
Your dowsing rods, yes.
And they work phenomenally.
Yes.
So
probably our best gear.
Yeah, like mine were actually dug, like the copper was dug out of the ground near a river. So they very much so.
Yeah, they're pretty supercharged.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a natural conductor as it is. And depending on how you feel about ghost activity, a lot of people feel it is an electrical charge. There's electricity behind it, which is why we measure it with EMF gauges, why we measure it with millimeters and all these different things, because we suspect that it's electrical.
Right.
So anything with copper and electrical is going to be a natural conduit. So that's why I think. And there's another part to this. What else is in Jerome? Water.
Oh, yeah.
See? Gotcha.
I was trying to think, what? What's he talking about? Yeah, there is. We did find some running water, and that's just specific to a place, at least, that we saw.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about. Now, Cottonwood does actually have a lot of lush cottonwood trees.
Yes.
And that's why it's named Cottonwood. And there's a major, I think it's the Verde River that runs through there.
Yep.
Because we were looking, and they have, like, even kayak trips and stuff. And let me say something here. When you're in Arizona, you don't see boats. You don't see kayak. You don't see that in Arizona. Now, Grand Canyon has the Colorado River flowing through it, and you see it up
and
north.
Havasu, yeah.
Yeah, but if you're kind of out in this area where it's kind of more desert, you don't really see that. But Cottonwood does have the big trees, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, it does.
But you drive just over from Cottonwood to Sedona, and you don't have that.
No,
you're back in like desert, So it's very rare to see that. But yeah, we did see some water flowing, and we just kind of ran upon it, and I didn't know it was going to be there. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in Jerome, and when you already got all this tragedy, and if that holds on to that,
it's a supercharge.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, Jerome, much like Tombstone, much like some of these places that have water, have the type of geological stuff in it, it turns into kind of like one of those hotbeds.
And there's something to say about mountains. I don't know what it is, and it must just be what's in the mountain, the rocks in the mountain. But every place we've ever gone that has a mountain has some kind of juju.
So, juju is
I
right.
like that word because it's the only way to explain it. There is juju going on.
Well, with my limited amount of scientific knowledge, the way I understood mountains to form is there were two standing bodies of land. And whether that be through earthquake or whatever, they slammed up against each other.
And they come up.
And it created... So when you have rock that hits each other, just on a basic ABC 1, 2, 3 science, rocks that slam against each other, what do? They spark.
Okay.
They kind of... Right, there's an energy to it. An electrical charge. So two big land masses that slam against each other bound to create some kind of... Whether it's a residual energy or however it is, but especially in our culture, we always think of the mountains as being... I mean, they're not dead objects. They're very alive. There's a lot of things that are done with it because of that very nature. I think that having those two forces collide creates that energy, creates all these other different things. And you add the fact that it's copper, the fact that there's running water, again, supercharged.
Yeah, true. In this specific spot. And most mountains have, like, running water. But so we get there, we unpack everything, and we've got the dog with us. So we're like, okay, we wanted to go to, like, one of the really cool restaurants, but dog, right?
Yeah.
Now, I will say, though, Arizona is very animal friendly.
That's right.
Jerome was very animal friendly. We just looked up to see what restaurants would accept a dog. Well, we found one that had a really cool title, and I'm like, and we weren't super hungry, but I'm like, I want to get out, and at least experience. We can just get appetizers or something.
Yep.
And we find this restaurant called the Haunted Hamburger.
So awesome.
It was so awesome. And they, I contacted them, and they allow pets, and they have an inside, and then they have an outdoor seating, like on a balcony. I'm like, of course, we're going to sit on the outside, Of
course.
And they have the outside balcony has like an overlook. And it was so cool. So we went around sunset, brought the dog, and they allowed us to sit out on the patio. Really, really awesome little place. And I'm like, why is it called the Haunted Hamburger? There's got to be some reason. And we did talk to the manager. She came to our table and sat and talked to us. Yeah. And the our waitress was really cool.
Yeah.
And they gave us some stuff. We're going to put the pictures up here of, like, their menu and how to contact them. And they even have a little gift shop. You can buy little stuff.
Yeah, I didn't get to go in, but you did.
Yeah. So we go into the gift shop after we ate, of course. And so I just wanted to show this. We always get shot glasses.
Yep, that's our thing.
Wherever we go, because it's something small that you can put in a suitcase, and then, you display where you've traveled.
That's right.
So I'm going to show this little shot glass if you're on the video podcast.
Yeah, and if you're not...
just a clear one with a big H, and it says Haunted Hamburger. They did have the glasses that they serve your drinks in and stuff.
Yeah, that was cool.
But I'm like, oh, we've got already so much.
Yeah. Yeah, by that part of the trip, we had already...
Our Jeep was completely packed full.
It definitely was packed full.
But it was really good food. You had the what?
I had the hamburger sliders.
Yeah, and we'll put pictures up here of us sitting there. And I had, which is something, well, we had deep fried pickles we shared between the two of us, which are really good. But something I had never seen on a menu. And I'm not a spice person. I love it, but it does not love me. And so I have to always be really careful. But these are really good. But after a few, like, I ate most of them, but they started to get a little heated.
There was some...
But they were chipotle deviled eggs, and I love deviled eggs. But I was like, I had never seen that before. And they were delicious. Yeah. But by the end, my face was starting to get a little red.
Well, and they put that...
I gotta stop.
They put that on the burgers, too, like a sauce. It's very good. But yeah, it had a little zip to it.
When you go to the Southwest, I mean, that's the thing. They like to spice it up. Yeah.
That's what we do.
But thank you to everybody at the Haunted Hamburger. And we're going to provide their Facebook page here. And you can go visit them. If you're in Jerome, you got to go there. Yeah. It's just really, really cool little space. And everybody's so friendly. And the manager was telling us about everything that happens in the restaurant and was pointing out other places in town. Yeah.
And it's super haunted.
Yeah. You can feel it.
Yeah.
But here's some of what they say happens. So there's cans that fly off the shelves. The hot water gets turned on in the middle of the night, which that's a bill.
Yeah.
distinct smells in the stairwell, and there are photographs taken by the guests that show an apparition of a woman.
Interesting.
But it kind of sits on that, I can't remember what street's on, but there's kind of like a main street that kind of goes through the town.
Yeah, it kind of winds
that kind of
through.
winds around, and it kind of just sits right there. And it's just down from one of the other places we're going to discuss.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it's kind of a main thoroughfare there.
It is, and first of all, parking's a little bit of a challenge, but it's still worth it.
It's totally worth it.
Even if you have to walk a little bit to it, it's worth it.
And I love, and we'll show the pictures up here, but they've got like a little skeleton hanging off the edge of their sign that says Haunted Hamburger. I was like, that's so cool.
When we first pulled up, I was like, what is that skeleton doing to that sign?
It's so cool.
It looks a little interesting, but no, it is really cool.
So make sure and check them out. Go visit them if you're in town. Just an awesome, awesome place.
Yeah, it really is. I'm glad we just decided to go out because we were pretty tired, but
yeah, and it was perfect amount of food, great view. We watched the sunset.
we did.
Yeah, just was perfect, and we got to bring our dog, and he was really good.
Yep, the Mando Man.
Yep. Now on to one of the main places talked about in Jerome as being haunted, which is the Connor Hotel.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, it was built in 1898 by David Connor, which is appropriate for the name.
Yeah, I mean, it fits.
Irishman, obviously. Now, it was originally designed with 20 rooms upstairs, and it was a first-class lodging establishment. Also offered bathroom, card rooms, and billiard tables on the first floor. The rooms were rented on what was called the European plan.
Okay.
Okay. For the pricely sum of $1 per night. Wouldn't that be nice now? The Connors' telephone number was 8. That was interesting.
Oh, it's long distance. 8-1?
I don't know. Now,
I'm long distance. I'm 10.
This is interesting. The stone foundations for the building were quarried from the hills around Jerome. And the brick was fired in nearby Cottonwood.
Okay.
So, you seeing where we're getting?
I see what you're putting down.
Yeah. Now, before the turn of the century, the hotel burned to the ground twice. So, I don't think the complete thing did, but, like, it was burnt twice. But remember, we talked about all the fires that happened.
There's only dynamite.
Yeah. And it reopened in August of 1899, being one of the finest lodging establishments in a booming mining town in the West.
I paid $1 for this room.
Though the hotel was too expensive for the, quote, ladies of the night, okay, to use for their customers, there was a false storefront located at the west end of the building, which opened up to the infamous, quote, husband's alley.
Oh.
Okay.
The ladies of the night.
Where the ladies had their own cribs. Now, if you don't know what a crib is, we do because we've been to Tombstone many, many times. It's basically a room.
Yeah. It's not a great one either.
It's called a crib. It's basically big enough for a bed to do the business, and that was it.
It's an F shack.
Yeah. Now, when the mines closed, obviously it affected the hotel because there's not people needing to come work in the mines.
Well, sure, yeah.
Right? And it caused it to close in 1931. The shops on the first floor were continually rented, but the upstairs rooms remained vacant. Now, in the 1980s, there was a restoration done to make it safe, once again, for guests, because you go that long, or a long time period. It's
Just
gonna,
a slight amount of time.
Decay. Now, here are the hauntings.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
Or what's claimed. There are said to be 2 spirits that are said to haunt the building, a lady in red and a male spirit. Now, we're going to talk about some specific rooms here.
Lady
and we should say that we were only out in front of this because obviously had the dog. So we couldn't really go in, because we didn't know where we were allowed to walk and we couldn't stay there. I kind of wanted to stay there, but.
Yeah, dogs.
Yeah. Now, room number 1. Okay. People say they can hear a woman whispering as well as they can hear scratching sounds.
When we do any kind of investigation or just in general, loud stuff, it's scary. I'm not saying it's not, but whispers?
It's different, yeah.
Yeah.
And scratching sounds. Now, could that be an animal with as old of a building it is? In the walls? Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. One guest said that he felt a cold presence join him in bed by lying on top of him. Now, that's different. I don't know how you explain that one.
In the F shack?
I don't know where room 1 is. No, I think these are No, because there's a store at the bottom.
Oh, that's right.
And
that's
so
right.
this is up at top.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, an artist that was staying there kept seeing a lady in red in his dreams. And this is why this means something to me, because whenever I get like contact, it's always through my dreams.
Yeah.
And it's weird because at the time you're not scared because it's in your dreams, and you
Right.
wake up and think about it, you're like, whoa.
There's that protection
Right.
layer. Yeah.
So he decided to paint a large mural, which is now found above the bar in the spirit room of the Lady in Red. And the spirit room is like a bar that they've got in the downstairs area of the hotel. And so we're going to include that photo here. And there is a lady in red. And maybe she was maybe she was the head lady.
You know that Lady in Red song just keeps coming at me.
I know. In room 5, people feel hot and cold spots, which a hot spot, I don't know what that would be. I've never...
It is Arizona. I mean...
Yeah, I don't know.
Hot spot that you would feel in the air would probably just be like a warm breeze, maybe? I don't know.
I don't know. Or the
That's
heater.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the cold spot I get.
Yeah, I've seen that and felt it.
Now, people's hair on their arms and neck stand straight up. We've had that happen. And they hear strange noises.
Yes.
Electrical appliances like TVs and lights malfunction. And they say the alarm clock goes off by itself when the room is empty.
Yeah. Again, you know, you look at the whole 30,000 foot view and you say to yourself, okay, it's just, I know you think I say that a lot. And you say to yourself, it's just, you know, what can it be explained? Yeah, I mean, theoretically, copper, electrical, we already discussed it's a conduit. Could there be, a discharge of some sort to affect this? Sure. But looking at the bigger picture is what you need to do.
And for it to just happen in one specific
Right.
room versus the entire place, I don't know. Now, the second floor bathroom, they say, well, there was a relative of the owner who was using the bathroom when she heard a soft man's voice calling her.
In the bathroom.
There's a thing about bathrooms.
There is.
Like, you're very vulnerable.
Yeah.
That is not cool. Like, I
No.
hear people talking about, like, things happen when they're in the shower and stuff. That's where I draw the line. I'm like, you can wait until I'm out of the
You got
bathroom.
your derriere in the air, and you got somebody whispering at you. Jeez.
And a soft man's voice. That's really odd.
Well, at least it's soft.
But if it was a relative of the owner, that means she's probably there a lot.
Yeah.
And they may know her by name.
Maybe.
So that's a little interesting to me.
But the bathroom.
Because the
stuff.
guests, they come and go. But this is someone they probably knew.
Yeah, probably.
Now, in the stairs and in the hallways, photographs that people take capture, which, I don't know, it says the vortex of an invisible entity on the stairs. I don't know what that means.
Well, I mean, I guess you would figure a tornado technically is a vortex, so probably like a V-shaped kind of mist. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know exactly, but that's what's reported anyway.
Okay.
Now, in the spirit room, like I mentioned, that's the name of the saloon type bar thing that's in the first floor.
Which is a really cool name because spirit obviously being
I know.
alcohol.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. Now, the lady in red appears to stand looking at a person before slowly fading away. So she is seen there. And that would make sense if she was on the first floor.
Sure. Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah.
Because that's where all that activity happened. Now, people also report being touched by an unseen person in the bar. Now, is it that's happening? Or are they just had a few too many drinks?
A little Lucy Lou, hey.
But I could see that. I mean, if that was the floor where these women...
Yeah.
That does make sense to me.
Well, that's where they conducted their business.
Exactly.
And business was good.
Now on to the main haunt of this town, okay, which is the Jerome Grand Hotel. Okay, and it is very much like the Shining Hotel. It's up on this hillside, and to get a good view of it and get a good picture of it, we actually had to drive away from Jerome. We're still in Jerome, but across, and you'll see. Then we were able to get a full picture of the city.
And honestly,
very cool building.
Oh, yeah. And that's why I got the Shining vibe when we were driving up there, because you do see it from the road as it's winding up.
Yeah. And it sits up on this big hilltop. It's very cool. And, I had to walk up to it to try to get pictures of some of this stuff. But as I was doing that, as we were talking about the water before, I noticed I had to cross over like this little culvert of running water that's going right underneath the hotel. And we've got a picture that I took. I tried to get the picture, and if people saw me, there were a few of how it was dangling over this thing to try to get the picture of the culvert and up to the hotel to show that it's like conjunction.
Folks, we go the extra mile for you.
Yes, we do. I'm like, I'm going to break my leg or my arm doing this.
That's not cool.
I had to dangle the camera down
which had my
and
heart
hope that
pounding.
I got the shot.
Yeah.
The shot, yeah.
Let's just dangle our expensive gear over and hope nothing bad happens.
But I got it, and that's all that matters.
You got it.
So the Jerome Grand Hotel, it was constructed in 1926, but it started out as the United Verde Hospital. Okay, to replace the old hospital that was constructed in 1917 that had damaged south wing. So this hospital was basically to take care of all the miners and anybody that got hurt in that
anybody
town.
who knows mining, who's been raised around mining, it is
Horrific injuries. Yeah.
Injuries, deaths. The things my family has told me that happened just in the smelter alone, not just the mine. Oh gosh.
Now, the United Verde Copper Company insisted that the building be built fireproof and to be able to withstand major blasting from the mines. So each floor has 3 fire zones, and when the stairwell doors close, a 6-hour fire break is between the floors. So they've got 6 hours to try to fight that before it goes to the next floor. I can't even imagine that.
Well, it'd take 2 hours to get to it.
Yeah.
You know, coming up the road.
Probably, yeah. Now, this resulted in what is termed as an above-ground bomb shelter in the Spanish mission styles, the way it's described as being built. Okay? All the exterior walls, floors, and roof are reinforced, poured-in-place concrete, with the only wood used in construction being doors, windows, and built-in cabinets.
Okay, yeah.
The walls between the rooms are compressed gypsum blocks, plastered on both sides, and the ceilings are suspended metal lath and plaster.
Man,
So that's an
some
interesting
reinforcing there.
Yeah,
Jeez.
which is why the thing's still around.
Yeah.
It is 30,000 square feet.
Yeah, that is a lot of coverage.
And it featured patient call lights, balconies, sun porches, emergency backup lighting. And they had one of those Otis self-service elevators. They had an ice-making room, laboratories, an x-ray, major and minor surgical facilities, men's, women's, and children's wards, private and semi-private rooms, blanket warming closets, and housing for some staff.
Yeah.
That's massive.
That's huge.
In 1930, it was considered the most modern hospital in Arizona and possibly the western states. More than 9,000 people died in the hospital.
Wow.
The hospital closed in 1950, and most of the furnishings were removed in the 70s and 80s.
9,000 people. Now,
I mean, and there was probably more, but that's what they know for sure.
You know, you look at like all the big hospitals rather that, you know, that are well known to be hot spots. You got to know this place is just nonstop ghost fun. You know, it's just.
Well, and I found some newspaper articles of people actually that got injured and actually died in the hospital. Now, obviously, I could have gone for hours. I just clipped a few to show, but not good.
No.
Deaths.
No. And hospitals, I mean, they just have that. Now, I do know a lot of hospitals are residual, but still, I know that there's got to be some active and some intelligent. And it's got to be just wicked crazy. Now,
it closed as a hospital. And after the suicide, so the caretaker in the 80s killed himself. They think in the boiler room. So after that happened, the building was boarded up and watched over by local police and a small staff. And then in December of 1993, it was sold to Larry Alther, who still owns and operates it to this day. And that's when,
His name wasn't Freddie, the guy who killed himself in the boiler room, was it?
I don't know.
Okay.
Why are you saying that?
Keep
Was
going.
that Is that
Nightmare on Elm Street,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. I don't like those movies, so I don't pay attention. Now, excavation was done during the first 2 years of renovation, and it wasn't until July of 96 that the first rooms were ready and the building was opened as a hotel. Mm-hmm. And in 2003, which I love this, and I wish we could have gone because it would have been awesome. Now this is not an asylum, this was a regular hospital, but they named the restaurant the Asylum Restaurant.
Yes.
And they opened that in 2003.
That's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And here are the reported hauntings. Mm-hmm. Now, here is what's interesting. So, we've got some information from the owner when he first moved in and started work. Okay. He said that there was kind of a feeling, like when you went in, that like your presence being there was kind of being questioned, like if it was okay for you to be there. If you were welcomed or not. And he said after being there for about a couple months, he said this feeling started to relax. And then one day during the second month, it totally went away, for him at least. During the following months, there became a feeling of a protective nature. Like, okay, he's been accepted as being the new owner.
Sure.
And it's okay to be there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, the owner also said that out of the many visiting psychics over the years, which he's, I guess, brought them in, 3 of them seem to pick up a number of things, both past and present. 2 in particular said, quote, the head nurse, or the nurse in charge, was upset with the removal of the desks. Okay. Which would make sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's very important for them.
Now, both of the psychics were in what is now the restaurant lounge area and originally the dispensary and main entrance for the hospital. The owner told each psychic the original dispensary desks were in storage. The psychics did not know each other and visited more than a year apart.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Later, upon leasing out the restaurant lounge in 2003 to the Asylum Restaurant, the new tenant somehow saw 2 cabinets stored at the back of one of the garages in the hotel, and he asked the owner what they were and if he could use them in the restaurant area.
Interesting.
Given permission, the original dispensary counter height desks were relocated within a few feet of their original placement. To date, the head nurse has made no more complaints.
Isn't that interesting?
Well, at least about the desk, they say.
Fair enough.
The hotel owner does admit that if there are spirits, they must be a lot happier occupying a hotel instead of a hospital. And I thought this was fun. He said they are dealing with a clientele that are here by choice and not necessity.
Nice. That's a good way to spin it.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. So I thought that was a really, really cool little tidbit.
Yeah.
Now, guests and workers and stuff, they say they hear coughing and labored breathing coming from empty rooms. Children laughing and crying in empty rooms in the hallways. Newborn baby cries on the 3rd and 4th floors, which is where...
Yep. The neonatal or the...
Well, maybe not neonatal, but just like...
what do they call that for kids?
Well, like all the birthing rooms and stuff is what I'm talking about.
Name just escapes me. Anyway.
There's a smell of flowers, dust, cigar smoke, and whiskey, which is a great combination. Flowers get delivered in a hospital. Dust, I think, is probably just being where it is.
Yeah.
But cigar smoke and whiskey, I thought was interesting.
Yeah, it just makes me think of the amount of people that were there, smoking cigars and a big lounge.
They would have done that.
Yeah.
Even if it was a hospital. I mean, at that time period, they didn't know it was bad for them.
I wonder if they paid more than $1.
At the hospital? Probably.
Yeah.
Now, there are light anomalies and televisions turning on by themselves. There is a ghost of a cat on the 3rd floor.
Okay.
There's always like a cat ghost.
There is. I'm not saying they don't exist, but dog ghosts you don't really hear that much about.
It's because cats are independent and they're tied to the spiritual world.
That's
think
right.
about the pharaohs and stuff in Egypt.
They were frightened of them.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, some were.
Now, the 3rd floor, I guess most of the deaths occurred in the operating room there.
I could see that, sure.
Now, they say that they hear the sound of a hospital gurney, like the wheels going across the floor, like the squeaky. Yeah.
In case you guys didn't pick that up, that was...
No need to repeat.
Yeah.
Now, room number 32. It was a former hospital guest room with a balcony and the site of 2 possible suicides. One former miner confined to a wheelchair reportedly climbed over the balcony railing and just let go, I guess.
Yuck.
And a businessman shot himself there, which I think I found the clipping for that one.
Oh, okay.
Because there is one talk about a businessman.
Okay.
The caretaker who committed suicide in the boiler room. And there's also a maintenance man, Claude Harvey, was found in the basement, crushed by the elevator in 1935.
Yikes.
And they think he rides the Otis elevator at all hours because they'll catch it moving, and there's no one on it.
I wonder if those are like modern elevators where they run a cycle or they just go up and down.
Well, it's the old Otis
Yeah, you're right.
elevator, so I don't think so.
That's freaky.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. First of all, just a few of those alone would be enough to go, okay, you got to really check it out. But I'd love to see this elevator thing. That'd be really interesting.
I know. I wish we could have gone in there. We will be back though, because without the pets, because I want to go in all these places.
Yep.
And there's one other place that I wanted to mention, and I just happened to find it. And it is really cool, and that's where a lot of the pictures that we got, like the distance pictures of Jerome, because is the thing in Arizona that I noticed, and to him it wasn't off, and I'm like, it's really weird. Like everywhere you go, every mountain that they've got a letter in the side of it, and like Arizona in Tucson they've got the A
for University of Arizona.
In Bisbee they've got the B.
The B.
And so when we went to Jerome, they had the J.
The J.
So we've got the picture of Jerome with the, all the buildings, and from the distance you could see it. But the reason we found this, and I didn't realize we were going to see all that, is because we were looking for this cemetery.
Yes.
Okay, and it's a miner's cemetery.
Incidentally, if you're getting to this cemetery and you're on that main strip that we're talking about that winds through, there's going to be a sign that tells you to go there. You're not going to fall off the mountain.
It looks like
it looks like you're going to, and every atom in your body is telling you don't make this turn. But don't worry, it's fine. You go down it, you'll be okay.
Mm-hmm. But even if you don't go there for the cemetery, it gives you like 360 views of like the city and the mining, the smelter and everything. It's really cool.
It's cool. It's really cool.
We've got pictures of that here. But it's called the Hogback Cemetery because the ridge that it sits on is Hogback Ridge, which is an interesting name.
It's very interesting.
Now, there is... the cemetery's kind of locked up, or at least it was when we were there, and we had no way to access it. And I think you used to be able to get to it in the past because I've seen other like accounts of people actually walking among the gravestones, but we had no way to get in there. And maybe it's because there was too many people.
It gave me the feels.
Yeah. Now, it's very unkempt. There's broken headstones everywhere.
Which is probably why they don't let people
there anymore. It's all grown up, and some of the grave sites are like fenced in, like with like the metal. And I think that was originally because of animals. They didn't want them being dug up.
Yeah.
And they think there's about 400 graves.
400? I didn't think it was 400 there.
Well, they said but there's fewer than like 40 headstones.
Yeah.
And some of them, the headstones are laying down, and we couldn't even see them from because we were only allowed to go to the gate. And I tried to I actually climbed up on the top of the Jeep to try to get a picture.
Yep.
And tried to zoom in as much as I could. But like I said, they're probably all buried down the hillside from where we could see.
That's weird. Yeah, if you guys ever go there and you look at it, even in the pictures that we're going to show, no way do you ever think there's going to be 400 of them there.
Yeah, and they think that most of the people that died and were buried there died of gunshot wounds or mining accidents, diseases, stuff like that. And over time, there was more than just the miners. Because once they left, it was just people of the town. But there was a lot of violence. And they think there are a lot of the ladies of the night that got killed or buried there as well. And this is kind of how Jerome got the reputation as the wickedest town in the West.
Yeah.
But we've heard that multiple times about like Tombstone and
even Tucson.
They've all got there was a lot of violence.
There's a reason why my home state was called the Wild Wild West, because
it was.
Yeah, it was the Wild West, and people didn't exactly. First of all, nobody really listened to law that well out there. It was
No.
truly a frontiersman mentality.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, if if you had something they wanted, they were going to take it, whether it meant your life or not.
Now, a lot of the reports, at least when you could walk among them, they report hearing disembodied voices, which I could see, and they
Sure.
hear footsteps, like walking up behind them, and see dark figures probably at night. I would
Yeah.
think they see shadow figures.
When it comes to the disembodied voices, and when you look at the pictures and you think about where it is, sometimes I attribute that maybe to wind, that's kind of rustling through some of that stuff. I would have
Could
loved.
be, and I don't know, could it carry? I mean, the town is so far from there. I don't know if
Yeah.
a voice could carry that far.
No, but there are homes close to it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it could. And what's interesting is that it's kind of one of those where you would get that kind of airflow in that valley through the mountain range. And if it's high wind at all, it's going to run through all that stuff. And my guess is some of that stuff is kind of recorded and thought of as being disembodied voices.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying it's not haunted, because let me tell you something. We drove up to it, gave me the big time feels. But I really wish we would have had a chance to actually do something there.
Well, and we need to specify too is you're standing there, and off to your left, up on the hillside, is where the town of Jerome, or the main
Right.
downtown is. Okay, and then to your right, down the hill, I mean very far down the hill, is the copper mining
Yep.
company. So
Yeah,
you
it's
can
right
see
there.
it right there, and so it's basically nestled between the two. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know, maybe there's kind of like,
I mean, it could be like a sound thing that kind of
yeah. But we tried to get, and like I said before, like I dangled over the waterway to get this picture. And to get this picture of the mining company, I literally climbed on the roof of the Jeep
Yes.
to get up high enough, because if you try to take it from that place in the cemetery, there's trees, there's everything else blocking the majority of it, and I couldn't get a good perspective. Now, we did get a good shot of it.
Yeah.
So that's the United Verde Copper Company.
Yep.
And there's also, you can kind of see it in the distance from the picture that we put up from the hotel.
Yep.
When you're looking down, you can see it off in the distance. And it was a huge operation.
It's enormous. And if you look at it, and especially the picture we're going to put up, at the time we took it, there was a fire going on. So that kind of sucked too.
Yeah, there was a lot of smoke in our photos.
Yeah.
Because they were really worried because it was getting super
Very
windy
windy,
and
yeah.
all that stuff. But you can see how it kind of just nestles there.
Yeah. And it added a little bit to
The spookiness.
Yeah. It didn't detract from our fun there. It just was, except when in the morning you're like, ugh.
Yeah, it was a little choky. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But that was our time spent in Jerome.
Yeah.
Like we said, we were there for a night and part of a day, and we were off to Sedona the next day. But definitely a very cool place.
Yeah.
Would love to go back and actually stay in one of the rooms probably stay in both hotels. That would be really cool. And there are more places that we
yeah.
did not discuss. I mean, according to the local residents and the people that we talked to, the whole town's haunted.
Yeah.
I mean, every house.
There's a museum there. I mean, there's a ton of places they say that are haunted.
Yeah, I mean the whole town, but they're sitting on copper.
And
So,
water.
yeah, that to me,
And, guys, go look at it
Perfect
yourself.
storm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, when we say it's gorgeous, it's gorgeous. But it's, in my opinion, it is supercharged for paranormal activity.
yes,
There's a reason why this is all happening there. Check it out. I mean, it's cool. But I will say this: if you're scared of heights, it might be challenging. There's definitely some drop-offs when you're driving up there.
yeah. It's very safe.
Yeah, it's safe, yeah.
If you're looking out, if you got height problems, don't look out.
Yeah, don't look out.
It's going to be hard to not look out,
Yes.
but I mean,
Yeah.
it's beautiful. It's just a really cool town. And go experience the local restaurants, talk to the local people, go visit the galleries and the shops,
Yeah.
because I mean, you get a feel for the town.
Yep. And if you stay at the hotel and you hear somebody go, "All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy," I wouldn't hang around. On that note, guys.
I apologize.
Yeah. Oh, you know you like it. Hey, listen, we had a good time. Thank you for stopping by. Any questions, comments, or anything, please leave them. Other than that, guys, we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to Generation X Paranormal. Remember, all editing is done in-house and we're a self-funded podcast, so your support truly makes a difference. Like, subscribe, and follow us on all socials to stay connected. Special thanks to Eric Cooley for creating our music. And don't forget to check out our Patreon for exclusive content and ways to help us keep the show going. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the unexplained.